Stop searching for a soulmate. You're not gonna find them. Boo, Ricky, who broke your heart? Get off the stage. Hey, take it easy now. So I want to take this moment now to have like a little reflection on this idea of a soulmate, right? There are different ways of thinking about soulmate, but I'm going to reference three different ones. The first one, the New Age spirituality belief of a soulmate. Then there's the ancient belief that has to do with Greek mythology. And there I would reference the modern romanticized idea of a soulmate. I'd say that all of them are incorrect. The New Agey one has to do with spirituality, about the law of attraction, a lot about manifestation, and it really is just kind of like an occult way of thinking about your soul. And please, if you are messing with any of this stuff, please stop, go to confession, seek spiritual direction. You don't want to be messing with all of that stuff. Now, the Greek mythology one has its ties to thousands of years ago. For example, a philosopher by the name of Plato wrote a book titled The Symposium, where it referenced a so-called beginning of humanity. In it, he talks about how man was originally two people as one. So they were essentially a ball with two heads, four hands, and four legs. And at some point, Zeus ended up splitting them in half. And as a result, once they were split, they felt incomplete because they were missing their other half. And so tying that into today, there's this idea that your soulmate is out there in the world, that you just have to find them, and that once you find them, you'll feel complete. And the other idea of soulmate is the belief of finding a romantic partner who is this perfect person, who is gonna make you happy, who's gonna fill your desires. And all of these three are incorrect. We know that in reality, humanity is not the result of a clash between gods or the result of promiscuity. We know that in the beginning, God made us in his image and likeness, which means that right now, you are complete in a way. Now, we still have concupiscence, we still have broken human nature because of original sin, but we don't really need to go find another person to complete us. Oftentimes when you are young and you're starting to date and whatnot, you romanticize the other person. You romanticize the idea of love. You start to say, oh, you know, my girlfriend or my boyfriend, they're this beautiful person, I love them, and you have this passion in your heart. And if you're not in a relationship, you start to feel lonely, you start to feel forever alone, and you start to say, wow, those people over there, they look happy because they're together. And you start to say, well, there must be something wrong with my life, or I'm not perfect, or I'm not complete until I go find another person. And when you're young and dumb and immature, you start to get into relationships out of fear of being alone, or wanting to be popular, or because everybody's doing it, or because the movies, the TVs, they romanticize finding a spouse or getting in a relationship. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with getting into a relationship, especially if your vocation is marriage. That's what we should be pursuing. And this should be pursued through prayer, through fasting, and through discernment. But at some point, these young lovebirds, unless they're the ones that stay together forever, they realize that this other person is broken. They're not perfect. They sin, they lie, or they hurt. And so they break up. And at that point, they might say, oh, I just didn't find the one. They're still out there. My soulmate is still out there, and I still need to find them, but this just wasn't it. Or they say, no, love is not for me, I give up on it. Or they might even jump into a next relationship to try to fill that emptiness that they feel. But that young and dumb and immature view of love, it doesn't lead them anywhere except disappointment. Because when you start to think about soulmates as a reality, you start to idolize another person or the idea of another person. And that person can either mature or continue the cycle. of getting in and out of relationships. And some people eventually do find someone that they're compatible with, or that they feel close together, someone that they feel comfortable with, and get into a relationship and get married and have a family. But even people who are older go throughout their life waiting to find the one. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have high standards. You should definitely have your non-negotiables when it comes to relationships. You should have your faith as a priority. You should have things that you say, unless this person meets these requirements, I'm not going to get into a relationship. There should be people who draw you closer to God, not people who are gonna make you separate from God. But even if your vocation is marriage, that marriage isn't going to be perfect. And people who are already married probably already know this, that that person isn't going to completely fill the void in your heart. As amazing, as beautiful, as attractive, as romantic, as whatever they might be, as great as they might be, they aren't going to completely fill the desires of your heart. And why is that? Well, because our hearts, our soul, our whole being is longing to be with God. In heaven will be where our greatest desires are filled. In heaven is where we will experience the most amazing joy. And in this life, we are pilgrims following God. And so while we're still in this life, we're going to experience sadness. We're going to experience depression. We're going to experience moments where we feel incomplete. And it is in those moments of emptiness that sometimes we make the mistake of pursuing other things other than God to fill the void. Sometimes it's drugs, sometimes it's alcohol, sometimes it's promiscuity, and sometimes people get in relationships just to try to fill that void. But nothing in this life can fill that void. Not the greatest career, not the greatest success, not the greatest love, not the greatest relationships, not the whatever. And I don't say that to depress you guys. I say this to help you guys realize that in this life, we're going to suffer. Now, we shouldn't run away from that suffering. We should carry our crosses, whatever the cross might be. But the good news is that we have a Savior. We have God who loves us. So if you're having these moments of sadness, if you're having these moments of feeling incomplete, then don't make the mistake of going to earthly things to try to fill it. Don't go and try to manifest things into your life, because you're not God. Don't go and try to fill it with vices. Don't go and try to find these gurus who have a secret formula for your happiness. Instead, bring all of those thoughts, all of those emotions, and present them to God. Go to prayer. Read the scriptures. Pray the rosary. Go to church. Talk with a spiritual director. Even seek a Catholic therapist. God doesn't want you to be miserable. He doesn't want you to hate your life or feel like your life has no meaning. God is working the good in your life. And God is so good, He's so gracious, that even though in this life we won't feel 100% complete, in those moments of relationship with Him, He will fill our hearts, oftentimes even more than if we had tried doing it by ourselves. He will always give you His love, and He will always give you the necessary graces to get through the day. So don't worry, you don't need a soulmate. You have God, who is infinitely better. And side note, if you are trying to get into a relationship, remember that it is important to pray, but it is also important to take action. So go put yourself out there. Love is a beautiful thing, and sometimes it is found through patience. So no te me agüites. If this video was helpful in any way, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. And check out this video to learn more about St. Valentine's.